Hey, it's Ryan here, and I want to talk to you today about teaching magic to kids. Specifically, what tricks I like to teach to kids and why I choose them. So we're talking about curriculum, lesson plans, the actual things that kids can and maybe have trouble doing. And that's today's magic tips for, Ryan's tips and tricks for magicians. That's what we're doing. So I just finished a week at circus camp. I'm actually here in my hotel room just for another day, and I'm the magic instructor. So that means for a week, 5 days, kids are doing magic with me for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. Well, 30 minutes to... It changes every day. But I don't have much time over this week, just short little installments. So I've pushed my focus onto tricks that kind of have a quick win for kids. And if I could only teach one magic trick to a kid, it would be this: a rubber band. Put it on fingers 1 and 2. It's on there pretty snug, yes? Watch. You can go from there and jump right across. That is the first trick I would love to teach kids because of the I got it factor, right? It takes a bit of time. It takes a couple times through before they're going to learn it. And I have done a whole video about how to teach this trick. There's a lot of little steps to it. But the reason I choose it is because when they get it that first time, their face just goes. So it's a real kind of epiphany moment for them of, I can do magic. And that's why I love this trick, because when they get it, they just feel it. There's a couple of the tricks I do that are easy wins. And this is especially good if you're doing a multi-day or week-long workshop for day one, just to give them some easy magic wins. At circus camp, they do everything. Juggling and acrobatics and puppetry and all that stuff. But the kids struggle with the unicycle more than anything else. And there's certain kids who just don't like the unicycle because it's hard. Because with the unicycle, learning to ride a unicycle, there's a lot of failure first. And you have to fail through a lot of rehearsal before you even do it right once. And so they struggle with that. So I'm trying to circumvent that with magic and teaching them a few tricks that are very easy to start. Another one, I have a spot 4 on that side, but this is a weird card. It has more than 2 sides. On the other side, there's 3 spots. The other side has 6 spots. So that's 1, 4, 3, and 6. So spot card is something, again, a very easy win, and especially in a classroom environment, I can teach this to an entire group. If you're teaching magic classes, think about the situation you're in, because what you choose for a classroom environment, if you're one instructor teaching 10 or 20, 30 kids at once, that's very much going to impact what you choose, because you can't do anything that requires hands-on learning at that point, right? If you have to go around to every individual kid, teaching that trick is going to take half an hour. So this is another trick I like to do as a warm-up trick. It's you get 2 poker chips, white, green. Take these, put them into your hand. I'm going to remove the, it feels like the white one. I'm going to remove the white one, put it in my pocket. Snap my fingers, it jumps from my pocket back into my hand. Like so. So this is another trick. It's a very easy to grasp trick, and it requires no sleight of hand. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. Magicians think, oh, well, if we just practice, we can get this stuff, right? It's easy. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's easy. Things like the French drop, try it as an experiment, just for fun. Find the nearest 9-year-old and try and teach them the French drop. And you will notice how hard it really is. There's a lot involved in what we consider to be such a simple move. And they will find new ways to do it differently. Even a trick that's in a lot of kids' magic books, with 1 coin, right? You've seen this one? Where it disappears? That's in a lot of kids' magic books, but it's actually a difficult trick. You have to keep in mind, you have to adjust your expectations. Things that are easy for you because you've been a magician for 5, 10 years. The idea of doing a false transfer for someone brand new doing it for the first time, that's not so easy. So even a simple trick like rubbing it on the elbow, right? Not as easy as you might think. And depending on how much time you have with your kids, that might not be the right one. If you only have half an hour, you only have an hour to teach a whole magic class, avoid anything that requires anything resembling sleight of hand. That would be my suggestion. Any high-level deception or misdirection. Those are concepts that just you can't teach in an hour. So this is a trick that's a little bit more involved, a little bit more practice, but I did have good success with this one this year. It's a new one. And it's the GW Hunter puzzle knot. So the idea is if you don't let go of the ends, it's impossible to tie a knot, right, in a rope. Even though you can make it look like you've tied a knot, it's absolutely impossible. Yeah, there's no way that I can get a knot. Oh, hang on. So that's the GW Hunter puzzle knot. It takes a bit more practice, which is good, right, for a magic class. You don't want everything to be super easy. You want kids to have to work a little bit and have to learn a little bit and practice. If I first started with doing the actually tying a one-handed knot, I did this last year at circus camp, which is that. So it's not necessarily a trick, it's just a technique. But that was a big hurdle. That was ended up being the hardest thing I taught last year. And even the idea of me saying, okay, so hold it with your thumb here, and your pinky here, so that the middle two fingers can come out. This alone is a struggle for some kids. They just don't have that dexterity. So things to think about: make sure you're not setting the bar too high, and test out your material with some kids to see just how easy it is. There's a lot of little tricks like this. This is the I don't even know what it's called, but the idea of there's a dice in there and you can guess, even though it's sealed up, you can figure out what number is facing up. Little plastic tricks, you can think just magic kit tricks would be a good way to describe them. So usually these are good in that they're, instant access. They get the hang of them pretty quick. There's generally very little sleight of hand involved. The only thing is, if you are not able to give these out, I say don't do them, because this is not something they can ever recreate. So as soon as magic class is over, they'll never see it again. So it's just a waste of time to teach them, unless you do have enough to give out or you include that in your materials cost. Another new trick for me that went over really well this year was the calculator cards. And I have made these up. Actually, I through Wow Factor Studio, I've actually put out a template that you can get these. It's like $15, and print out your own calculator cards branded with your own logo and all that good stuff. In this case, I branded them with the logo of Circus Camp, because that's a cool thing to do. So calculator cards turned out to be a really good trick this year. Day one, I was teaching the coin trick and the spot card trick, and those really aren't very deceptive tricks. People can kind of see through those, especially their parents, and they love to go home and show their parents, and they come back and they say, yeah, I did it, but my dad figured it out. So I specifically said, well, today we're doing a trick that your dad will not be able to figure out, calculator cards. And it was very true. They came back the next day and they're like, I did it, it was great, and I did it like 7 times, and my mom demanded I tell her how I do it. So calculator cards went over really well. I had these little, so this is one sheet of paper that gets cut up into these little cards, and then I also had my instructor set for the front of the room laminated, which allows me to show it to everyone and everyone can see clearly. But again, this is something you can give out. They can take these home and keep them and practice it. So calculator cards was a big thumbs up this year. One thing that I really try and do with all the material I choose is draw a line between teaching magic and exposing magic. The tricks that I choose to teach are kind of self-contained. They don't teach kind of some core concepts of magic. I avoid at all costs teaching anything where a card is forced. I don't want to teach the idea of card forcing. I don't want to teach any rope trick that involves the little short piece of rope on the end. I don't want to teach anything with a thumb. I don't want to teach. I again also try to avoid the idea of palming. I don't want to teach tricks that involve palming, really. Because I don't want these kids to take my magic class and the next day go to my show and start to recognize things. Like, oh, wait a minute, we learned something that looked kind of like that. I don't want to teach that because it takes away some magic from them when they didn't really sign up for that. So I teach tricks that are self-contained. They learn that trick, and it's a concept that really only applies to that trick. Like, the rubber band trick. There's no way that learning how this trick is done will affect any other magic trick in the world. There's no other magic trick that works like this. The acrobatic paper clips, no other magic trick is going to be ruined by knowing how that works, right? It's kind of a very clear distinction between that specific little trick and the range of techniques in the magic world. And that's my personal choice. I just don't want to unnecessarily expose magic, even though I'm sharing magic and teaching magic. And another general tip I have for teaching magic classes is try your best to point out there's a difference between knowing how the trick is done and knowing how to perform the trick. Myself personally, I was a very shy kid, and magic was a big part of helping me to develop myself and learn how to speak with people. And if I was just interested in the secrets, that wouldn't have happened. So you really need to emphasize that. I've shown you how this trick is done, and now we're going to learn how to present it. I actually separate those two things in my classes. I say, okay, now we've covered how it's done, let's get to work on the details of how to present it. And then I bring kids up and we try presenting, and I say, here's an idea for, you might want to try on that. Somebody else presents it, I said, oh, that reminded me of this, and just keep adding layers to it. And get those kids performing and talking in front of that group. That is actually more important than the magic trick. So just make sure you're not just overflowing or overloading kids with how to do magic tricks, because that's not the point. The point is giving some kids will just never do it again, but you're giving some kids the ability to connect with people, which is kind of a big deal, and it's becoming more and more of a big deal. So keep in mind why are you teaching magic classes, and what's important for you. That's it. That's my tips and tricks for today. Thanks for watching. I will see you again.